Everyone. Welcome back to the Mesa International Film Festival podcast. Today we have a great guest on, Alexander Nunn. I am your host, John Martinez, with Natasha Kenny. And every great film has moments we never forget. A silhouette against a sunset, a close-up that breaks your heart, a frame so beautifully it stays with you for years. Behind those moments is a cinematographer, the artist responsible for turning words onto a page into a visual emotion. And that person who has many other facets about him and other talents is Alexander Nunn. So, Alexander, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
So, so we'll just get right down into business. We'll start at the beginning. What first made you fall in love with cinematography?
Uh, I kind of fell into it, to be honest. So I didn't set out to become a cinematographer. I was I didn't even want to do crew initially. I was in front of camera. I was doing stunts and acting, and then I was broke also. And production that I had done some stunts on asked me if I could. I was like, I know how to. I've messed with DSLRs. I know how to focus a lens. Like, can't be too hard, and it's second unit. So, I can make this work. And then I I got on there, and then the first unit, first AC quit on my second day of work. And so they're like, you're on first AC, so you're first unit, first AC now. And then that was kind of like how I dipped my toes into crew work initially. And then the first time I ever DP'd anything, or cinematographer, was a friend in Vegas asked me to come out and help him with a film, and I assumed he would be the cinematographer because that's what I was familiar with him as, and I was still brand new with crew doing AC, so I was like, yeah, I'll AC for him. I found out it was his production. He was directing and producing this, and so I kind of ended up stepping into the role of DP, and I was like, well, that was fun. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do more of this. So yeah, so I kind of fell into it. I had no plans to go this route at all.
So when did you start actually dabbling into all this? What was the first, you know, catalyst that said, "Oh, this happened. Now I want to, get into this crazy world of filmmaking."
Uh, so 2019, I was working in computer security for a national laboratory in New Mexico, and I was just I was like, well, I've got a little bit of time. It'd be interesting to check out film and, see what that's like. I'd thought about it in like college, but like, every time I found a casting call in college, it was like, I've got class that day. So yeah, at this point, I was like, I could take, if I need to, I can take vacation time and go and do this and get paid double, to be on set and whatnot. So I found a casting call for a show called Briar Patch, starring Rosario Dawson. It was a limited HBO series. I actually have never seen it, but it's yeah, they were looking for people, and I applied, and they were looking for like a political crowd scene, and so they're taking anybody. And I applied, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, you're booked," and I'm like, "Sweet." And I was I'd been kind of bored with my job at the time because it was just like, desk, I get tickets and work on stuff, and so I managed to get myself fired in between booking this and actually being on set for the very first time. And so like I think there was like about 2 weeks there, and in the between getting booked and being on set, and I was like, and somewhere in the middle there I was fired, and was like, well, I'm gonna check this out, see how this goes, see where this takes me. And so, yeah, I got on set that first time, and was just like really, like, I've always been interested in how everything works. And I watched all the Lord of the Rings making of documentary type stuff and all of that. And so I was like really excited to see how a set worked and how everything worked. And got on set. I was holding like a lot of the day. And it was like, volunteering to go out on set and walk across, and it's like, it's background, whatever, but like you get to be on set and see what's going on. And they were picking other people. And finally they chose me, and I got on set, took one step, and they're like, all right, cut, moving on. Like literally, I got to see a little bit of what was going on that day, like hardly anything though. And just kind of, yeah, was fun. They fed me, they paid me. Let's check this out some more. So that was like the initial catalyst for getting into film.
Wow. And then, so then you're in New Mexico. How do you make it over here to Arizona?
So yeah, so I originally did high school and college here. My family's here,
Oh, okay.
and yeah. So I was in New Mexico for about 7 years. 5 of those years I was in film, and then yeah, there was my grandma was getting older and having a lot of problems, and my parents were getting older and having to deal with my grandma, and so I decided to come back and help. And I also had to move because my landlord wanted to sell my house. So it was kind of like, well, I could move to Albuquerque or I could move to Phoenix and be with family. And it was like, there's more at the time, at least there was more film in Albuquerque, but it was also Albuquerque, which is like, it's grown on me some, but I'm still not a big fan of Albuquerque.
And so I like you are so fascinating, and you haven't said the most fascinating part of you yet, and I'm going to go ahead and rip that band-aid off. You are also this amazing martial artist and fight choreographer and like stunt choreographer. Like I don't know what title you give yourself for this, but like watching you, it like absolutely amazing. Like it's jaw dropping because you can move your
Yeah.
body in ways that would like it makes my body hurt just watching you. I think I have this one photo of you doing like a split and like doing like a little pose. So like did that come before cinematography? How did that come into your career?
So yeah, so I grew up doing ballet. I started ballet 3.5, 4, something like that. My sister wanted to do ballet, and I was just there, and they're like, "Hey, he's a boy. He can, do ballet for free." So I did ballet growing up until I was about 13, when just I didn't have as much time anymore. And then as I was my senior year of college, I found a kung fu school that was here. So I do a style. I do what people call wushu, modern wushu, same style as Jet Li. There's different types of kung fu basically, but yeah. And so I had found out about wushu on Apple Dictionary, Mac Dictionary. I just was scrolling in it as one does in high school. I don't know. I found Wushu. I was like, what is Wushu? I've never heard of this before. I know Kung Fu, Jiu Jitsu, karate, all these other martial arts, but what's Wushu? I read it, looked it up, found this amazing video on YouTube of these people just like flinging themselves in the air, and was like, oh, dang, that's so cool. I probably have to go to China to learn this. And then I think it was senior year of high school, was driving along just literally down the street from where my parents lived, and found this church that was a Chinese church. And I was like, oh, that seems cool. Let's check that out. We went there and found out that one of the guys there taught wushu, and he was actually him and Jet Li were classmates growing up doing wushu. And so he had a wushu school right behind the church, and so I started going there and learning some. And then when I was in New Mexico, finally doing film.
It's fascinating to hear that, it starts off and it seems like a lot of us, and I'll put that in quotes, have like another career. And then all of a sudden we kind of find this. And I got to ask him that question when he gets back on. You know, what he's saying is fascinating, but that question, like, what was it that you saw when you were, younger that said, hey, I think I want to do this. And when he's talking about Jet Li, I remember years ago, I think Jet Li's first American film was a Lethal Weapon movie. And you watch him in that and the way that guy moved, it was just different. And there's obviously Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. And then you see Jet Li, it's these martial artists. And I mean, too, he's an actor. I mean, besides no martial arts, I know the act. I just remember watching that. And then Jet Li, he made several movies that are all pretty incredible just to see what he does. And when Alexander jumps back on, I remember we were talking in between takes about, what he's doing. And then we started talking about, Jackie Chan and what that is, and just those stories. And then Jason Lucky, who was on set that day too, came up and
Another incredible stuntman.
yeah, Jason is incredible
Incredible.
too. And in getting these guys together in this conversation, you realize like, oh, we all like Jackie Chan, like, oh, we all see the same movies.
How
And
can you dislike Jackie Chan? He's awesome and
yeah, and
funny.
yeah, and Alexander, when he was there, he's just an incredible person where we needed help, quick, and he literally was responded
Like
quickly.
the
And
next
then
day, like he
yeah,
was there at like 6 a.m. and like I have videos of him training actors in the dark, and the
yep.
sun's coming up, and just such an incredible human and so versatile too. Because I remember like he would go from you getting him on film to choreographing everything, and then he'd hop behind your camera and he'd just be like watching and helping. And so like it was just so incredible to see him in his space and in his creative mind.
Oh yeah, and two, not shooting an action scene before, I had my ideas, but the one thing he did mention was like, hey, do you mind if I give you some ideas? And collaborating in film is my thing. It's like some directors don't want to do it; they just want to be in control of everything, and I get it. But also, too, I think it's good for you to listen to what other people are saying, because maybe your idea, while it works, but someone else says, "Hey, what about this?" And then you realize, like like it made it better. Like my scene, I think the way I had in my head, but it was designed to be quick. Was like, yeah, okay, probably would have been boring to see, but then he's like, yeah, I can do the spinning back kick and then kick him and then punch him. I was like,
And he really can in like
yeah,
mid-air. It's insane. And the other thing too, it's like you have to also remember like actors, not all actors are stunt people, right? So they don't have that background. So there's a whole safety factor played into that too. So when he comes on, like I know some of the actors were starting to roll and he's like, you know what, like that's not safe. Let's do it differently. And it's really important, I think, as a creative to also hear what other people have to say and what they think. Like you bring up a good point. So many people are just, this is my idea, like we have to execute it this way, but it's also important to be open-minded too, because something can come along that's so much better.
yeah, and that's the one thing too. It's when he gets on, it's as an actor, he understands how to bring the character light, but also as a cinematographer, he understands how to frame it, and as a director, he knows how to do all of those things. So he's literally a jack of all trades. So it's not just, hey, this will look pretty cool. And so the one thing that you said too, to kind of cut in, because you mentioned Jet Li. With his beginning, I know Jet Li made a lot of movies, but I believe his first movie in the States was in the Lethal Weapon movie that he had with Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. I forgot which one it was. But when you saw Jet Li come on screen, you just knew. And then having watched Jackie Chan, obviously Bruce Lee prior, like you see these great martial artists. And then when you see Jet
Hmm.
Li, it's like, okay, there's something different with this guy. And then when you see how fast he moved, it's incredible. But we were just talking about you, and
Yeah.
it's actually a little like yourself, where how to run a camera. You are a director, so you're an actor director, and then two, you understand what it takes to make a fight scene look real, and
Yeah.
then also two, you actually understand what it takes, how to frame a shot. And the big thing that we were just talking about is like collaborating. Like I met you before, like we had like a 2-minute conversation. And we'll
Yeah.
get to the thing. I don't want to ruin it, but then I was in need. We were in need, and you literally showed up. So I mean, if people are listening, that's one thing I don't think they know about you. Like I just texted them like, "Hey, can you meet us?" And you showed up, and then we're filming. You came up. You were being patient. I truly appreciate. We all did. And then the next day, it's like the sun's not even out, and you're already, warming up these people.
Like barrel rolls, it's insane.
Yeah, but growing up, like, what was the movie you saw? And I think as creators, we all see something to me that triggers it. That says, "I saw that movie. I want to do this." But then I think we have
Mm.
outside or inside influences, like our parents, you know,
Yeah.
rationale that this industry is it's so difficult to be in that you're like, yeah, maybe I should
Yeah.
do like a real job first. But what was that
Yeah.
movie that you saw that you said, if I had the chance and I could, grant that wish to be in the film industry, it's because of this movie. What was that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have like one specific movie I know of that I'm gonna be like, yeah, that was the movie that was like that's what I want to do. But I would definitely like, I mean, a big influence was definitely Jackie Chan's Project A. That was like the first Jackie Chan movie that I ever saw of his, and I didn't even know it was Jackie Chan. It was at a garage when we were waiting for the car to get fixed, and I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome!" And I was like, I was in middle school or something. I don't know. So that was definitely a big influence for like, and then learning. Actually, you know what? Probably what the one thing that really did, it wasn't a movie, it was a standardized test question, really. That was one of the things that was like, oh, that's really cool. And it was about Jackie Chan, and it was like you had to read this whole kind of like essay about Jackie Chan and his process and doing his own stunts. And I swear it was on at least two of the like standardized state tests or whatever. I'm pretty sure I ran into it twice, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. This is really interesting. And then you had to do reading comprehension type stuff, whatever. But that was really one thing that I don't know did really stick with me. But yeah, movie wise, like of course, Lord of the Rings, that was a big thing, especially the making of documentary part, because that was really interesting. I remember watching the BBC Chronicles of Narnia. I remember watching that and be like, how the heck did they do that? Looking back on it, it's like, oh, it's such basic, effects and whatnot on stuff. But at least, via modern standards. But like, I was blown away with it as a child. Just like, how's this work? So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things, and I love storytelling and stories and pretend and all of that. So
To lead into my question, yeah, like you've kind of led just right into it, where you really like stories and kind of playing pretend, and that's essentially what movie making is, right? And
yeah.
your choreography like needs to be also safe, right? Like
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
actors aren't necessarily trained stuntmen. How do you ensure like safety? Like what's different from movie fighting as opposed to real fighting? Like if you're an MMA fighter.
So yeah, partially the reason why I got into camera work was because of stunts, and because with stunts, knowing your camera angles is half of being a stunt man. And so knowing how you can cheat that stuff with the camera, and then knowing what you need to sell in certain ways is a big part of it. And so yeah, I can work with, you know, actors that aren't trained stuntmen, because I've had to do that, and I've learned, how to kind of like try and make things, work. I really like working with trained stuntman. It's nice because I'm just like, okay, let's do this and this and this, and we're like, okay, cool, let's do it. But that's not most of the job.
Yeah, you know something though. I mean, you just said a lot of things too there. I mean, it's also storytelling. Like, how do I tell the story with the suspension of disbelief? Like, they need to believe
Yeah,
that punch, that kick worked, and also
yeah,
too, an audience doesn't want to see that same shot all the time, and having like
oh
the
yeah,
right angle and everything that working with you we did. I'm like, hey, they actually came out like they actually tell a story in a unique way, other than
yeah,
just swear on how it is. But to
yeah.
kind of go back, you were a cinematographer for your friend out in Vegas. When did you start like literally going on your own where you're like, I think I can do this, with like I have enough experience there, and like with everything, like you think until you get on set and you realize, okay, now there's problems that I didn't, but that's I think the beauty about filmmaking is that you have an idea, but how you get to it's actually the challenge, and once you can figure that out, it's it
Yeah.
makes like magic. But when did you knew or know that you can actually branch out and go it on your own, and what project was that?
I hmm. Probably the project in Vegas, honestly. That like after that, that was kind of like, okay, like yeah, I know what I'm doing with stuff. I kind of figured that he would be the cinematographer, and he really acted more as the director. Now he definitely had some say, as you know, as all directors do, also on the cinematography. As I was doing that, I realized like it was about halfway through the week, honestly, when I realized it's like because we were shooting like a week, and it was like, oh, like actually I am acting as the cinematographer here basically, and yeah, I feel pretty confident in this, and so that was where I started to yeah be like, okay, like I can go out and do my own stuff somewhat. It's always good to get on set and in various roles and like see how other people work. I've done a lot of AC work for different people since then and still doing AC work. And lighting was something that I had to learn, you know, to DP well. And I feel like I didn't really start to get that locked in as well as, you know, on a super professional level until like this last year, basically. It's always interesting to get on set with other people still and just see how they work, see how they manage the crew even. I mean, that's a big part of it as well, is just managing your crew and being like, okay, delegate this, and like this is something that I need to maybe do myself. Or you get a certain level in film, it's a lot about managing people, and so whether it's stunts or it's camera and you know lighting, because with you know people have different skill levels. If you have a crew that you work with regularly, then you know where they're at. What I like to do is kind of like get a baseline, figure out where people are in movement capabilities and what they feel comfortable with, and then I can kind of craft stuff around that, because then I know I can be like, okay, like they can handle this, they can't handle this, let's keep everything around here and it'll look good still. And with similar with managing crew as like a cinematographer, it's like, okay, like I know I have a really green crew because this is like a no paying budget, you know, movie, and we're, you know, got a lot of like college students and whatnot, and they're great, and it's, you know, they're there to learn. And I always try and, you know, if I've got that kind of crew, I try and make sure they take something away from it knowledge wise. If you have a more experienced crew and you can have a more experienced crew, then you're like, okay, cool, we can move fast because I know I can do like, okay, like, you know, gaffer, go do this. Grip, you know, let's haul this in and do whatever. Let's set up the camera in this configuration. You know, it's you can move faster that way. It's all about kind of managing what people know and are familiar with and can handle.
You bring up such a great point, and you've said it quite, multiple times. For being on set is like managing people, and John and I have always had this conversation of like we come from management backgrounds, and it literally is just management of people. And I think
Mm,
that's why so many people come from different backgrounds, different career backgrounds, and they could jump into a set, or if they choose to be a creative, they could jump in just because they have leadership or they have management experience of just managing people. It's just applying it a little bit differently when you're on
yeah,
set. But however, to that point, in managing people and managing just, I don't think people realize how much people power it takes to actually put a whole production on a project.
yeah,
You have gaffers, you have grips, you have first AC, second AC, DPs, like the list just goes on and on and on. And you guys have a lot of people, like you said, college students learning. In your experience, in your vast experience, because you've worn many different hats, what would you say is one of the most frustrating things you deal with on set? And I would even go as far as to say, like, what's your biggest pet peeve on set?
yeah, yeah. I'd say definitely where it's like you're on set and you're like, what are we waiting for? A lot of hurry up and wait, right? If I know what I'm waiting for, then it's like, yeah, of course, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. Sometimes it can be frustrating because it's like, okay, like I'm, you know, I know we have this much time and we're waiting for this. Like, can we do something else while we wait? Kind of sometimes. If I'm, this is in like the DP side of things. If I'm stunt coordinating and whatnot, I'm a little bit more chill on that. I had a experience recently where I was kind of co-producing and DP, and it was kind of I was wearing a lot of hats on it, and so that one, it like sticks out to me where it's like we had this day and we were like, okay, we got to do a lot today, and I'm like just trying to like get stuff in, and people are like, no, we can't do that yet because we got to do this. Oh, we can't do that yet. And I'm like, just let's get something done because we need to get this going. If I'm like, okay, like I know we've got time and I don't have as much importance on it, I suppose. I'm like, okay, like I've got to wait, and I get that. I want to do stuff. When you're on set, you want to be able to do your work and then get done and get everything that you need to. And like I've heard of like some actors, they have it in their contract even like, I'm talking big name actors, where it's like they're like, if I'm on set for over half an hour and you're not using me, then like start charging like fees, which is kind of insane. It's like I'm excited to be on set, but yeah, I can see where you want to be working. You don't want to be sitting around. If I was on a production where it was like 3 a.m. and we were like literally napping on a concrete pad. I was on stunt team on this. We were napping on a concrete pad because we'd been up since 10 a.m. trying to do different things. And we were like, what's going on? And we went out and like cruised like fishing. We're in like Houston. And like somebody caught a alligator gar and we're like, what is going on here? And like the stunt team got kind of a little bit ticked off and was like, we've been up since 10 a.m. Like, what are we doing? Why aren't we doing anything? So I think that can be the biggest thing. It's like, but it is a balancing act because like yes, you do have to wait for if you're on the crew side or the camera side, sometimes you have to wait for lighting. Hopefully with camera, usually you try and not have anybody waiting for you because you can set up while lighting's doing stuff, and then yeah, stunts, and acting, that takes some time just to get it done. So there's there's certain different things where it's like, yeah, some people are waiting while other people work. It's kind of frustrating when it's like, what is going on here? Why aren't we doing anything?
Yeah, no, when you said that, it kind of reminded me of the day we started working together. It started very early, and you
Hmm.
had to train up a lot of people. And then we were filming literally just around to kind of give you that time to prep, film other things, come back, get those scenes. And when we did it, to be honest, like I was shocked. I didn't think we were going to pull it off. But then just showing what you did, I was like, man, you literally made these actors look like, they actually knew what they were doing, which was incredible. I was like, wow, and then just the takes to get it done and the believability to do it. I was like really impressed. The stamina that you have just to be a performer was like next level. And I do mean, I'm like, I'm not joking because I was getting tired watching it. And I think as I'm going in post, looking at the scenes, you're doing it and whatever happened and you kept doing it. And there's like one scene, I think there's like 7 takes on it, and it's you exerting energy to do the move. And every time you did it was the same thing. I was like, man, like this guy's good. It wasn't like slower down, like your speed was always the same speed to do it. And
Hmm.
by the time like you and I were looking at it, like, man, that looks good. Like, okay, let's move on. And we kept going and going. And then after that, our biggest enemy was the sun. We kept losing
Yeah.
light. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
But in the future, that's the one thing that I notice is just to give like people like yourself the time. And I just said, if I gave you more time, what could we have accomplished? Not literally rushing, but taking our time and like pre-production to do all these things. So when we got on set, but we weren't like, in my opinion, we weren't wasting time. It's just there's so many
Yeah.
things going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But what we capture was incredible. But on that note, I definitely, if you're up for it, need to get you back on because we haven't even dabbled yet in the work that you have done. But we're coming up on time. But I did want to
Yeah.
get your an idea of who you are as a person when it comes to cinema. It's kind of what we call the rapid fire round, where I'm just going to ask you a bunch of quick questions, first thing that comes to mind, and just kind of see what your taste is and everything filmmaking. Okay, so the first question is favorite film of all time.
Interstellar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 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 It's for a while it was Danny Dog with Jet Li, but I watched Interstellar and just like blew my mind. This was like right before I got into film, I think, and I just like the whole experience and like the storytelling and everything just was like, oh, this is incredible.
So let me ask you just one follow up question. What did you think about the docking scene?
The docking scene. I thought, I thought it was good. I thought it had a lot of, a lot of tension there, and it kept on ramping up in that because there was just so many things. you know, the ticking time, the failure that possibly could create, you know, multiple catastrophic failure, and just yeah, everything was like adding on. It was just like, oh man, this is intense.
Okay, Alexander, favorite fight scene ever filmed?
Favorite fight scene ever filmed? I think honestly, the Shang-Chi bus fight. That one was like really incredible. There's, I mean, I could go on about all sorts of different fight scenes, but that one, like that, like when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is one of the best fight scenes that I've seen. And unfortunately, it was kind of the best part of the movie. I watched the whole thing because I am actually in it, but I'm a little dot in the background at the end fight scene.
Oh, nice.
But the the bus fight scene, like that was really incredible, and it was made by a couple, you know, a couple of former Jackie Chan stunt team coordinators. I got to meet Andy Chung actually when I was on set a little bit. So there are two former JC stunt team members that created that, and they had like months to create that, and it's incredible.
Gee, yeah, I'll have to watch. I know there's a movie coming out called Furious that they're getting a lot of
Oh
money
yeah,
on for that. I definitely have to go check that out. But who's your favorite
yeah.
director?
Favorite director? Probably Nolan,
Oh,
Christopher
okay.
Nolan. Yeah, I think he does really good job of that. And I feel like I kind of have to go with, you know, Christopher Nolan.
I think I know who you're gonna pick, but we have to ask: Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee?
Jackie Chan. Yeah, I think, you know, Bruce Lee did a lot. He was really cool. I thought, yeah, I there were rumors growing up that we were related to him, but I'm not sure about that anymore. But my dad and his and my uncles were all like super Bruce Lee because he was, you know, he was the big, you know, Asian actor when they were kids that was doing this. But I think, you know, Jackie Chan just does a lot. You know, I feel like it's more engaging for me personally, at least his movies and his acting and stories and
I had
all
a feeling you were gonna go that direction.
that.
What is one film you think everyone should watch?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it depends on what what you're doing. So I would say definitely as an actor, Orphan Black, incredible acting. Tatiana Maslany, she's playing multiple characters of the same clone, and it's incredible. Cinematography wise, Dune. I would say, you know, Dune is incredible, and just like the scale of it and the color and everything, like the yeah, I was like, I have to see this in IMAX. I think Dune is really incredible with its cinematography. And then if we're talking about stunts fighting, honestly, probably Project A.
Uh,
Most overrated action trend.
Mm, definitely fast cuts. I'm much more for the longer takes, you know. I've been dabbling a lot with like trying to do like oneer style action, like similar to like Extraction. You've seen that, and that's I've been dabbling with that. I don't necessarily like that for everything, but I definitely think that like with action you need to establish the world. And if it's a lot of, you know, confusion and whatnot, it's like there is a small place for that. I feel like where it's like a drama and you've got a little bit of action, or it's really more of a drama, I suppose, with some action in there. I like to see what's going on. I like to be able to wrap my head around like, oh, this is what's happening here. How this is how this works, and you get a better sense of the fight that way, I feel like. Which, yeah, I mean, some people maybe would argue that you don't necessarily need a good sense of the fight, but you know, I think so.
all right, so I'm going to hit you with our final question here, and it's the question is, why do stories matter?
Ah, nice. Stories matter because it's how we communicate ideas as humans, I feel like. Back in the, you know, way old times, people would, you know, sit around campfires and there'd be like, you know, bards or, you know, the, you know, storytellers, and they would, you know, recite stories, and that would be, you know, how they would transmit concepts to other people. There's a lot of like where you can be like, okay, if I was in this situation, what would I do? And so you can kind of almost, do some like moral self-insertion where you're like, okay, like you kind of like test drive it, do a simulation with stuff. I've definitely done some self-insertion with like fight scenes. Like, oh, if I was in this sort of situation, like it's do or die. Like, I remember in high school, I was a little bit like that. Did shape my mindset somewhat, and then just kind of like general like concepts and like mottos to live by. Sometimes you come across. I just literally watched this YouTube video yesterday with this guy talking about movies that were mediocre but like shaped his like his worldview basically due to some of the lines that were in there, and the morals that it taught, kind of where it's like you know what's more important, to win or to do your best, kind of thing. So different concepts like that. I think you can explore those sort of things with storytelling and have a chance to kind of look at that without necessarily living it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. So, so one, we haven't even scratched the surface yet, and I know it's coming on time. I hope that you want to do this again because I actually want to
Oh,
get more
absolutely.
into. I actually want to get more into your ideas on your film preparation. We're talking about like with YouTube, the access to those videos, the access to hear other people's stories and shape, and I think that's something for those filmmakers that are out there, that are listening to this, like wondering out, like, how do I get into filmmaking? And I think on YouTube, unless you have friends in the industry, like YouTube's a great source to understand like how to actually start it. So I would just definitely love to get your sense of pre-production, production, post-production, and to go on there. And I think that'd be helpful for everyone else who's trying to do this to kind of learn from everyone else and gain those bits of knowledge I think can make everyone successful. So on that note, I just want to let everyone know this is Alexander Nunn. If you don't know him, follow him. We will put down his contact information on social media. He's incredible. He actually, too, and I'll leave this, he was actually in the Woshin competition last week. Was the first time he
Uh,
competed
I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was a
2 weeks
Wushu
ago.
competition 2 weeks
Wushu.
ago.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's multi-talented. But thank you for listening to the Mesa International Film Festival podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe wherever you get podcasts, leave a review, and share with a fellow filmmaker or actor. You can follow us on social media and watch our video episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep creating, keep performing, and keep telling stories.